Hey, I recently made a data pack and resource pack that shows the contents of Shulker boxes when you hover over them in the inventory. All you have to do is download and equip the resource pack, download the data pack and move it into your World Data Packs folder, and click this text, and from then on, you'll be able to see the contents of Shulker boxes in your inventory. The rest of this video is going to be an explanation about how exactly it works and how I did it. Starting in the resource pack, we have an image of all the items in the game arranged in a grid. We can use a font provider to tie this grid to this other grid of character codes. For example, the apple is on the first row 7th column, which corresponds to this character code at the same position. Now, whenever we use these character codes in game, it appears as the item instead of an empty box. I also have one that appears as the container background. More about the resource pack later. In the data pack, one main function runs every tick. It scans all players to see what's in their inventory. We count the total number of Shulker boxes in the player's inventory, then count the number that have already been processed. If some boxes still need to be processed, we can move on. The reason you needed to click that text earlier is to run a force load command, since functions don't have permission to. It loads a chunk very far away near the world border and places some special blocks there. There are 2 Shulker boxes, a jukebox, and a sign. Each one will come in handy. The first one we use is this Shulker box here. We need to copy the player's inventory to it. Copying is easy with 1.14's data modify command. However, the player's inventory is larger, so not everything can fit. The problem lies in the fact that when NBT is deserialized, invalid entries are discarded. However, NBT inside the tag of an item is never deserialized, so we can put anything we want in there and it will stay put. So we put a single piece of TNT in this Shulker box. We can then safely copy all the Shulker boxes in the player's inventory to the TNT's tag in an NBT list. Another 1.14 feature is a command to remove multiple NBT tags based on a filter. Unfortunately, due to a bug I discovered, the data remove command tends not to catch everything, so we need to do it 6 times. We use that to filter out boxes that have already been processed. Now that the list is filtered, the first item is the Shulker box we need to process. The slot number it came from is still saved. We copy that to a score because we'll need it later, then we set it to 0. Finally, we copy the item from the TNT into the Shulker box. Since we set its slot to 0, it overwrites the TNT. After all that, the player's Shulker box is now inside this Shulker box. Then we copy its items to this other Shulker box. It's the player's Shulker box in block form. These are the items we need to analyze. There's a simple process for each slot and we'll be summoning a lot of entities. Step 1. Copy the item to the jukebox. Step 2. Figure out what item it is. The naive solution is a super long function with one command for every possible item, but we can do a little bit better. The data get command lets us put the length of the item name in a score. For Minecraft:pufferfish, the length is 20. So we move into the function that lists all items in the game with that length. Step 3. Summon an area effect cloud with a custom name, because area effect clouds are more efficient than armor stands. The custom name is a translation. For now, we'll assume it translates to one of the item icon character codes we saw earlier. These steps are repeated for all the items in the Shulker box. If a slot is empty, we summon a cloud with a name translation for empty slot instead of a translation for an item icon. Sometimes there's extra work to do for an item. For example, this stack of sand has a count of 5. If an item has a count of 2 or greater, we summon in another special cloud. If an item has a durability bar, we calculate the damage percentage and summon in a corresponding cloud. For potions, we summon in a cloud with an icon for that potion color. There are also a couple special cases for broken elytra, crossbows, tipped arrows, and so on. When all the items are done, we have a bunch of clouds, but why? Well, we ultimately need to get all these names into a single piece of text, and there's a text component that can do just that, called Selector. Selector finds entities and prints their names in order, separated by commas and spaces. For example, these 3 pigs appear as Bob, Fred, Joe. If the cloud names were just the icons, Selector would produce something like this. It would be nice if we could overlap icons on top of each other, and get rid of the commas and spaces. Fortunately, we can. The translations aren't just the icons, they contain positive and negative spaces provided by Amber's special font. You can imagine an invisible cursor printing text from left to right, and a negative space allows us to go backwards and write more text on top of what we had before. So it turns out like this. First, print the name of the first cloud. Its name translates to the background image character, followed by a very large positive space. The game then prints the mandatory comma and space, but it's way off screen. The next cloud's name starts with a huge negative space, so the cursor comes back here. Then the icon is printed, and another huge positive space. That marks the end of this cloud's name, so there's another comma and space off screen. All of the clouds have names that are perfectly aligned with positive and negative spaces so that the cursor starts where it should, prints the item icon, and ends far off screen so that the commas are all invisible. The clouds for item counts or other overlays have a larger negative space to move the cursor back onto the previously drawn slot instead of appearing in the next slot. So this is the end result of Selector. It looks very much like a Shulker box GUI. Item lore does support text components, but unfortunately does not support selector, so how do we get it onto the item? Signs support text components including selector. We change the text of the sign so that it evaluates the selector, then simply copy the result to the item lore. That's it! The clouds are killed and we add another tag marking this shulker box item as processed. We can finally return the item to the player's inventory. How does that work? Normally, when you mine a shulker box, it drops itself containing all of its items. But we can change that with a block loot table. This loot table makes it so shulker boxes burst like a chest when mined with a pickaxe that has a special tag. In regular gameplay, you would never get this pickaxe, so it's purely hypothetical. But with /loot, we can simulate mining a block with a certain item. Using the hypothetical pickaxe here will essentially allow us to copy the shulker box contents to wherever we want. This is where we use the slot value we stored at the very beginning. With that, the singular contents of this shulker box, the player's item, is returned to whence it came. And it does all of this in a single take. That's it! You can get everything shown here in the description. Remember, it's for the 1.14 snapshots only and will not work in 1.13. Take a look inside the pack to verify I didn't lie to you, and make some font magic of your own. Until then...
No.